Hey there, welcome to Near Intents 102, a quick start workshop using one-click API. I'm Joshua Near Dev, and let's get started. If you're new to Near Intents, make sure you check out Near Intents 101. We go over all the Intents core concepts and components, how they all work together. You'll definitely get a better understanding moving forward. As a brief refresher, here's a high-level diagram of the intent flow where a user or agent creates an intent using some type of application. We categorize these as distribution channels. From there, the intent is then broadcasted to our market makers that compete to fulfill these requests, and upon approval, settles a transaction through a series of smart contracts. Of the intents core components, this workshop will focus on how to create a distribution channel or an application used to create, broadcast, and deliver users' intents. For this, we're going to use one-click API that simplifies the complexities of intents with easy-to-use REST points. We got a couple of SDKs to choose from, and for this one, we'll be using the TypeScript SDK. As you can see, there are 4 endpoints for one-click API to choose from. The main one you'll be using is the quote route. This is for requesting a token swap quote. There's also an optional route of submit, which allows you to let the one-click service know that a deposit was completed, and it helps speed up the process. We also have 2 get routes, one of which allows you to get all the current supported tokens across the various networks, and the other status to check the status of a swap. The flow is super simple. You just create an intent, send it to one-click via the quote endpoint, and then you await a response. That response will be a JSON object with all the quote details in it and a deposit address. If the quote looks good to you, you simply deposit the agreed upon amount to the provided address, and then the intent will be executed automatically. It's super simple. Without further ado, let's dive into the code and see how this actually works. All right, so for this workshop, we're going to be using the Near Intents Examples repo. That is under the Near Examples GitHub organization. You can find that by going to docs.nearintents.org, and from here, clicking on distribution channels and one-click API. Here's all the documentation for one-click, and the quick start tutorial is right at the top. So go ahead and click on that link, get to this repo, go ahead and clone the project, and you'll just be required to have npm or pnpm. Yarn works as well, Node.js, and some familiarity with TypeScript. Also a Near account. For this workshop, you will need a Near account. You don't need a Near account to actually perform transactions using Near Intents. I'll do a demonstration of what that looks like without a Near account, but for the sake of this demonstration, you're going to need one with a little bit of Near on it. Just 0.05 Near will be sufficient. Just going to be doing some swaps, and you'll see how cheap they are. Go ahead and get a mainnet account. Unfortunately, there is no testnet currently for Near Intent, so you will need a mainnet account. Also need to grab a JSON Web Token. JSON Web Token. You'll need a JWT. You can request one here, although it's not required. Not using one, you're gonna pay a 0.1% fee on all swaps. So it's a small amount, but if you just want to do some testing on it and you don't really care, it's fine. You can just comment some things out. I'll show you in the code how that works, but it's free to get. Just go ahead and request one for your project. So after that, we're going to go ahead and clone and install our project, install the dependencies, and then we'll set up our environment. I'll go ahead and go to my pre-cloned and dependency ran example. Again, you'll have a .env example here that you will then, just remove that example and create your own .env file. Put your Near account that you created, put your private key in here, and then also your one-click JSON Web Token. Okay, so once you have your environment variables configured, let's go ahead and start with step 1, and that is get tokens. Get tokens will fetch all of the available tokens across all supported networks. It returns an array of token objects that give you the blockchain network, the symbol of the token, and then also the asset ID and the contract address. The asset ID is going to be the one you're going to want to pay the most attention to. This is the value that you're going to be using when calling the get quote endpoint, which we'll be going over next. It represents the address of the token on the Near network. The contract address is going to be the address of the token on the destination blockchain. So for this example, this is the address for USDC that is deployed on Arbitrum. In order to hit this route, we're going to go ahead and import our one-click service from the one-click TypeScript SDK. Then we will call a method of get tokens, and this will return all of those token values. I have a little helper file here that you can explore in utils.ts that basically just groups these tokens by blockchain to make it a little bit easier for us to navigate. So let's go ahead and open up our terminal, and we will go ahead and run pnpm get tokens, which is a script in our package.json. And as you can see, this is all of the current supported tokens across all the various networks. So on Solana, here are all the current supported tokens. On Polygon, Near, and so on. So for the next step, we are going to choose Arbitrum. We're just going to get the native asset ID, which is this guy here, and then we're going to be using that in our next route of get quote. So heading on over to get quote, we have step 2 of this process that we will use to fetch our quote from the network of market makers. At the top, we have example swap configuration. But before we get into those values, let's take a look over how get quote actually works. We start by initializing the API client with a base URL and also the JSON web token. If you don't have one, you can go ahead and comment out this line, but you will pay a 0.1 fee on all swaps. Go ahead and just click on that form, get the token. It's free for you to get. The first parameter is whether or not this is going to be a dry run. If you're going to be using this for testing purposes, just to check to make sure you have all your values correct, go ahead and leave this as dry. When it does return the result, it will not contain a deposit address or when it's inactive or the estimate or deadline. The next value is going to be the swap type. Either it's going to be an exact input or the exact output. So if it's set to input, then the input amount is fixed and the output amount will vary. Or if you have it set to exact output, the output amount, the token out, will be fixed. And then the input will vary and it'll refund any remaining balance over to you. You have your slippage tolerance, and then the origin asset. So this is going to be the token you are going to be swapping for. Again, this is listed as the asset ID in the step before of getting tokens. And then you have the deposit type, which is either going to be the origin chain or intents. This is basically the difference between whether or not you want this swap to complete all the way to the destination chain, or if you just want to swap in and out of the intents contract. To explain what that actually means, let's take a look at what's going on during the intent swap. So as you know, we start with our intent and we send that over to our market makers to get a quote. When we agree on the terms, we'll send that over to the intent smart contract where it gets recorded. Then to fully complete the transaction, there needs to be a settlement on the destination chain by performing a transaction on that destination contract, if the swap is non-near native. And for cross-chain swaps, it's important to remember that the intents contract is on the near blockchain, separate from the destination blockchain. To resolve this, we use the OmniBridge to transfer those assets over. So with this full flow, we're paying for gas on the near network. We're paying a small transaction fee for the OmniBridge to bridge over the assets. And then we're also paying gas on the destination network. And depending on that network, this can get quite spendy, especially when dealing with, say, Bitcoin or Ethereum. So if you wanted to perform a series of swaps, but wanted to avoid paying bridging and gas fees for the destination chain and take advantage of the low transaction fees and gas prices on near, you can just avoid all the bridging and settling on the destination chain altogether and just interact with the near intents contract. And whenever you're ready, you can settle the final balance on the destination chain. So when you choose intents as the deposit type, you are depositing funds into the intents contract, and then that contract keeps track of your respective token balances until you are ready to withdraw them. All right, now that you know the difference between intents versus origin chain, a lot of these parameters will now make a lot more sense and be more straightforward. So the next parameter is going to be the destination asset. This is the token that you'll be swapping for, or your output token. Again, using that asset ID that we went over earlier. You have your amount, which is the amount that you're going to swap for. It's important to note that this is represented in the token's smallest unit and will be based on either the input or output token amount. We have our refund to address. This is the address that will receive all funds in case the swap fails. And the type of refund address. So this is going to be the origin chain or intents. So if you want to refund all of the funds to the address that's on the intents contract, you can do that. Or on the destination chain or the origin chain, you can do that. You have the recipient address and then the recipient type. So is this address that's receiving the funds, is it on the destination chain or is it an address within the near intent smart contract? You have a deadline, which is set to execute 3 minutes from now. This can be changed. You have a referral, which is a referral identifier for fee sharing or tracking. And then the maximum time to wait for the quote response. And then once you have that all configured, we just call one method from the one-click service imported from our TypeScript SDK earlier. And that method is getQuote. And we pass it the quote request. So let's go ahead and go back to our configured swap. Again, this is our example configuration. We have it set to true for testing. We have the sender address that is configured in our .env account as a near account. We have a recipient address. This is going to be for the destination chain that I am swapping for. I am going to be using Arbitrum in my example. So this is my Arbitrum address. We have the origin asset, which is represented as native near. One-click automatically wraps our near for us, so we don't need to worry about that, but the asset ID is wrap.near. And then the destination address. So this is the address we found on our getQuote endpoint that we did in step 1. This is native Arbitrum. And the amount. So this is the total amount that I'm going to swap for. I'm actually going to change this value to 0.01 just for my testing purposes. Let's test it. So we'll go ahead and open back up our terminal. I'll run pm get quote. All right, and we have our quote. So as you can see, these are all the parameters that we sent to it. This is our quote request that we sent out, and here's the response that we got. This is the amount that we're swapping for, again, in the smallest unit. It's formatted as 0.01 near, which is about 3 cents USD, and this is the amount that we will receive. So this looks all good to me. Let's go ahead and actually do an actual swap. So we'll go ahead and change this to false. Open back up our terminal. Run it again. And now you can see we have a deposit address, a deadline, and time when inactive. Now, to send this, we don't necessarily need to run this script here. We could test it out by just grabbing this deposit address and then opening up a wallet. So I'll go ahead and go to my wallet. I'll go to send. I will send 0.01 near to this account address and hit continue. It says account doesn't exist yet. It will be created on deposit. That is exactly what we want. All right. Token sent successfully. So now we can go to our Intents Explorer. And if we want, we can monitor this intent by pasting in that deposit address. And you can see it is processing. So we can see that it was created. The deposit is complete. And all right, yeah, looks like we did a successful swap. And if we keep scrolling down, we can see our destination chain transaction. We can look at Arbiscan, see this was successful. And we can take a look at our near transactions. See all those individual transactions on the near side. All right, so we've completed a successful swap. And now you can see where earlier I was saying you don't necessarily need a near account to perform any of this, because the sender address and the recipient address could be non-native near addresses. So yeah, if I wanted to take my Arbitrum address and put that where my sender address was, and now say I have a different address on a different network, I can put that value there. I can get my quote, and then I just send a deposit on that native network. To give you a quick demo on how this would work, let's modify our swap configuration values, and we'll get a new quote that doesn't involve any near native asset swapping. So now that we've swapped some near for Arbitrum on this account, we can go ahead and use that account as the sender address, and we'll swap Arbitrum for another token on a separate network. We can make things easy for us and just choose another L2 network so we can reuse this address. And the origin asset will be updated to our Arbitrum token. And then for the destination asset, let's go ahead and choose a token on another L2. We will select, let's go with Optimism. So we are going to swap for native op. We'll go ahead and copy this value and paste it as our destination asset. And the amount. So again, this has to be the token amount that's in the smallest unit. Here is a helper file that we use to convert our near to Yocto near, which is 10 to the negative 24th. I believe Arbitrum uses 10 to the negative 18th, and we can double check that by going to an Explorer, go to Arbitrum, and they have a unit converter here on Arbiscan, and yeah, it's 10 to the negative 18th for 1 arb. Let's go back here. Let's paste in this amount, and this is as a string. And all right, so we are going to swap from our Arbitrum account to an account that we're going to create on the Optimism network. We're going to have the origin asset as Arbitrum, and then the destination asset is going to be Optimism on the Optimism network. So yeah, we can check in our MetaMask and see, yep, we have some tokens on Arbitrum, and on Optimism, we have a 0 balance here. So with a successful swap, this value should give us 1 Optimism token. So let's go back here, and let's get our quote. So we'll do pm get quote. All right. And yeah, we have the correct amount formatted, 1 token in, and we will get just about half of an Optimism token, and the amount in is 40 cents, amount out's 38 cents. So yeah, spending about $0.015 for the swap. Cool. So this looks good. Let's grab this deposit address. And this is the deposit address that is on the Arbitrum network. So we'll go back here. We'll go to Arbitrum. We'll send. And here, we'll paste in our deposit address. And we'll select Arbitrum. And we're going to send 1 arb to this deposit address. We'll hit continue. And it looks like we'll pay 2 cents ETH. Go ahead and confirm. All right, transaction looks like it's complete. So again, we can go back to our Intents Explorer. We can paste in the deposit address, and we can see that this is now processing. So it's created, deposit's complete, and now it is processing. And complete. Awesome. So we can see now the transaction is complete, and we can view the transactions on the destination chain of Optimism, and also see the transactions that took place on the near network. But again, we didn't actually need a near account for any of this to work. These are all the transactions that took place under the hood using one-click API. And we can go to our MetaMask account and check our balances. And yeah, here we go. Now we have Optimism in our previously unfunded account. And again, this was used just from one Arbitrum account to one Optimism account, both using Ethereum L2s, with no near account actually required to perform the transaction. All right, so that's get quote. The rest of these files are kind of just going over what you already know. This is a send deposit script. This uses near API.js to send tokens using your private key that was configured in your .env file. This just, basic functionality of how near works for getting an account and transferring tokens over. You can find more about this in our documentation online at docs.near.org. And we have those two optional endpoints for one-click API. One of them is submitting the transaction hash to one-click. This just speeds up the process by early notification to one-click API that a swap has taken place. And again, this everything from the TypeScript SDK uses this one-click service, and it will call submit deposit transaction, and then you just deposit the transaction hash along with the deposit address that you sent that to. And then we also have that optional check status endpoint, and this is where we can check the status of the ongoing swap. Again, using the one-click service import and calling get execution status based on the deposit address. So finally, we have this file here that uses all of these steps above, steps 2 through 5. And please note that this file is configured differently than the other file. So if you configured get quote earlier, these are the values that you're going to use for a full swap. So in here, I have my near sender account. I have my private key. Again, that's set up in my .env file. I have my recipient address, which is my Arbitrum address, and now my Optimism address as well. And then this is my origin asset. I have native near, my destination asset, which is going to be native arb, and then the amount that I want to swap for. And you can play with any one of these values. And then what it does is it basically just imports all of those functions from the earlier steps and calls them one by one. So first we get a quote. Then after the quote, we'll go ahead and display the swap cost to kind of give the user a breakdown. Then in step 2, we'll send the deposit over. After the deposit has been sent, we'll do that optional submitting the transaction hash to one click. Then we're going to pull the status until there's a successful result. And then after the result, we'll give the user a link to the transaction that they can view it. So yeah, let's go ahead and try this out. Let's go PMPM full swap. And it starts with step 1 by getting our quote. All right, we got our quote for 0.01 near, for 0.065 Arbitrum. We have our deposit address and a little swap cost breakdown table here that explains that we're basically paying 0.004 cents for the swap. We can go and check our deposit, make sure that it was successful on near blocks, which it says it was. And yeah, now we are monitoring our swap status as it's showing us pending and processing, and now a success. And let's go ahead and view our final transaction on the Near Intense Explorer. All right, perfect. Looks like, we created, deposit, process, and withdrew our funds from the account into our Arbitrum account and successfully swapped 0.01 near for 0.065 Arbitrum. All right, thanks so much for watching. I hope this workshop was helpful for you. Here you'll find some near intense resources that are super helpful. You have the examples repo that we were working with at the top, official documentation for near intense at docs.nearintense.org. And if anytime you need live support, the team's always willing to help on our Telegram support chat, near_intense. Thank you so much and happy building.